Hello everyone, Venris here, and long time no see because the last months were very busy working and modding on Immortal Empires update for Total War Warhammer 3. As you all know, it was released in a beta state. I even made the first impression video about it, and since then I and the team are working on SFO 3, and today I will be talking about the philosophy of the change, what you can expect, what is the stage of the changes, and why it's taking so long. So let's hop in. First of all, I think the most important and most vital information that many people don't understand in terms of modding Total War Warhammer 3, this is not a DLC or an expansion to Total War Warhammer 2. It can feel like that when you look on the number of content, of improvements, things like that, but it's not in terms of tables and many things that are inside. Yes, some things are not changed at all. Let's say some script commands, some tables, units, the keys are the same. Those are just ported from the previous games, yes, but many things are different. There are different effects, different stuff, different abilities, different flags, because for example we have now possibility to make that abilities are staged scaling, so more kills gives more benefits to the ability, things like that. And imagine that all of this, everything that was done in Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 is not one-to-one ported to Warhammer 3, it has to be changed. Good example of it again is the healing abilities. Healing abilities in Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 1 were number based, like per tick per second, let's say 4 healing per second, yeah? Now it's percentage based, same with vigor loss reduction. Things like that were changed, so those things require a lot of balance. I'm not even talking about the vanilla, but mods overall, especially for the mods so big as SFO Grimhammer. Yeah, imagine that we have hundreds of abilities, not only in vanilla, to check those changes that we did in Warhammer 2, because as you know, many abilities in SFO Grimhammer 3 were reworked totally with different effects, even different stages, even use in compared to the vanilla. And we also have the abilities that we made anew, yeah? So we have several hundreds of new abilities, faction passives, army abilities, summon abilities, and there is a lot of those. So all of those were already ported. So yes, this is like very happy thing that all of those were already ported. Especially when we're working on Land of Wealth. That's why we have a battles beta right now with all the factions working more or less. Yeah, there are some bugs, there are some things that we still need to do in terms of the UI, especially because we are improving the UI a lot in terms of abilities. So you see more and more things like the damage values, number of projectiles, as I said. And the tricky part goes when we are moving to the campaign, because campaign, whoa, like we're talking about abilities and units, that's not bad. Yeah, the changes here are not bad, but when we are moving to the campaign stuff, oh my gosh, there is a ton of stuff that has to be changed. And not only we need to rebalance stuff, but going to the point that is, I think, most important in this video, SFO Grimhammer 3 is not SFO Grimhammer 2. Why? Because this is a new mod. This is a new mod on a new game, and especially to the fact, looking that SFO Grimhammer 2 was made in span of 5 years, like 5 years, yeah? 5 years of work, improving of our concept, ideas. A lot of things were changed during those 5 years. If you would look on an SFO in the year 1, and then in year 4 how it's working, how it's looking, it's entirely different mod. And with Grimhammer 3 especially, we don't want to make the mistakes of the past, because SFO 2 had a lot of issues, let's face it. The issues of those were mostly because of the design flaws that were from the beginning, that the mod was built on some premise and not scratched depending on the things that were added, and of course the mistakes. that we made. And all of this was because of a very simple thing. This game is giant. This game is really, really giant. So tons of faction had to be reworked. We made like a first attempt of fixing some of the SFO Grimhammer 2 errors with the Land of Elf update, so the previous update that we had with SFO, and this update had total rework of the economy to the point of squishing it. So smaller numbers from post-battle, sacking, buildings, things like that, way slower, way less effects that can scale that values like the trade bonuses, faction-wide public order, things like that were squished, but all the player penalties like SFO, Imperium Power, Vanilla Supply Lines were removed. Yeah, so get to the point of progression of the games like Civilization, like this Knight one that you're making your dynasty. I don't remember the name. But to make this progression is based on your action and not the penalties that game is giving to you. That's why I think that with the Land of Elf we made very crucial changes to the whole mechanic of the game, how the things are working, like let's say the experience gain for the units, chevron, things like that. And imagine that we made it for the vanilla factions of Warhammer 3. Now we need to make this for every faction from Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 1. Wow, so it's reworking, readjusting, checking everything that we did previously in the past 5 years with porting those tables from Warhammer 2. Yeah, so that only thing is a lot of work. Other thing that is going to this, let's say, point of things that needs to be reworked in terms of porting stuff from Warhammer 2 are the nerfs that SFO was doing. One of the most controversial nerfs in Warhammer 2 we had was that the red lines, so those all the bonuses for the units were squished. Yeah, for the characters. Right now we decided to not do it. To do it for the because we thought that there is way simpler way to do it. All the experience required to get new levels for your characters is higher right now, so you can get still those very strong bonuses, but later on. So we don't. Again, I think that this is like the result of the mistakes of the past that we can now fix, changing it. So yeah. It will be just looking and working more smooth for the player. So yeah, another example, more like a direct example. SFO was adding a lot of new content in terms of the mechanic, building, units, things like that. And as we are going through faction by faction, we can see that some mechanics were too much. They could be bloated or their purpose was not fully used in the game, and such example would be Empire. Empire had something that was called Imperial Decrees. Imperial Decrees were a mechanic where you can set a decree, so set of effects for prestige. This is the main resource for the Empire. Why? Because in the mechanic of vanilla that it is right now for the Empire, when you confederate all the Empire factions, the prestige has no use. Yeah, this like the whole mechanic with the elector counts stops to working. Let's call it like the prestige. Prestige purpose is fully filled. You don't have anything to do with it, and because of that, we had this mechanic. But in the actual gameplay, it was so problematic to the point that people were not using it because they wanted to leave the prestige for those random events that Empire has, and this mechanic was used only in the end game when its use was very minimal, I would say. So with this update, we are not adding this mechanic. This mechanic is not ported from Warhammer 2, and instead we focus on making the events in vanilla, those elector count events, more interesting, and every elector count state effects when you have the elector count there have new effects, some faction wide, some more interesting, some a bit more varied. And in terms of the what's with the prestige when you end the game, like you have all the factions, this is quite easy. Vanilla, the dilemma that was costing like 10,000 prestige, and you were able to pick from 2 effect bundles. And right now we made it that there are 4 of them, and when you pick it, the prestige stops to generate. So the number will drop to 0, then your UI is more clean, and you can still have this endgame option that is more simple and still working. And another example of such things, we are right now finishing the green skins, and Skarsnik had something that his faction mechanic, one of his faction mechanic was that, let's call it maybe not a mechanic, but a feature that he got had 6 unique skills only to him that were faction-wide effects, and we thought that it's not the best thing right now. It was not the best back then, and it's not best now, so let's just scrap it. Let's just scrap it, make something more interesting. And right now, Skarsnik and Night Goblin Warboss, so lords of the greenskins, have a new effect that depending on their level, they will lower vigor loss reduction, increase vigor loss reduction, and replenishment of all Night Goblin units in their armies. So similar to what Kroga have right now in Vanilla, that Sauros lords and heroes have their damage increased per rank achieved. So same system here, just with a different effect. I think it will be way more interesting than those boring faction-wide skills that their effects were just moved to character peaks effect. And we were going with every faction like that. So not only port everything from SFO 2 to SFO 3, because it would not work. And as you may know me, the most important thing with making SFO is always making the content as high quality as possible, as finished as possible on the release, and to the point that I will be also enjoying it as a player, so I can also play it. Okay, what's another point in this philosophy of the changes? We are going also with the units with the same pattern, whereas we are slowly porting all the units from SFO2 because SFO 3 is Warhammer 3 is using the different texture formatting, so all of those textures had to be sadly reworked. Some of the models are not working, animation. That's why you're not seeing so many mods, those quite unit mods from Warhammer 2 in Warhammer 3 just yet, because the porting is not as simple. As I said, this is not a DLC, this is not an expansion, this is a new game, so it has some changes that we need to work on. And yes, we are working on those. We want to update some stuff, maybe make them looking better, some simplifications again, with many talented modders that are helping us, and you can see some of the new units right now that we are changing their look, and sometimes even more than only the look, and some units will be scrapped because of the new units in Warhammer 3. What else to add here? There is still a lot of work ahead of us, ahead of the whole team. We are adding a lot of new content. We want this release to be as good as possible. Also, we are making a lot of changes, standardizations to the tables, to the point that last update of the game 2.2 took around an hour to fully update for SFO. So yeah, this update was quite massive, had a lot of changes, but thanks to the new standardization changes that we are making right now from the scratch for the new mod, we were able to update it in around an hour. So imagine that we have like a fully released this SFO update right now, that I won't spoil the name just yet, and CA just releases a big update, and you will be saying, oh no, SFO will be working for a month, for a week. No, it will be working the same day, because we made a lot of great standardization changes that we can update things like Thanos is flipping stuff. That will be all in terms of the most important philosophy changes for the Warhammer 3, SFO Grimhammer 3. Why it's taking so much time? I'm sorry really that's taking so much time, but we really want to deliver something as good as possible also on our standards. Yeah, so you will be able to hop in and not feel it's like a beta. The things that are planned in the near future is the beta of some of the factions already, because like all the Warhammer 3 factions are working fully. They're done. We are almost finished with Warhammer 1 faction. Then we'll be moving to the Warhammer 2 faction. There's still some stuff that we want to change and add to this update, so you will have more of those. There are also things that won't be in this update, like you don't expect the new skills for all the characters. We are adding some of them to the generic ones, to the lore, to some heroes. We are adding new traits for every lore type and a character type, not only the lore type. So heroes and lords will be getting their own unique traits, not faction-based trait, or like for them. So Captain, Empire Captain will have own traits. Empire Lord will have own traits, things like that. So, and more and customization, and also the SFO mod menu. So the thing that we added with the last updates, that you can change the difficulty there, caps, tide sweeper, some additional stuff, things like that, will be getting new options. You will be have options to change the experience gain for your units, AI units, a line of sight of your lords, movement of your lords on the campaign map, things like that. And you can also expect tons of quality of life changes, like the roads will be back, garrisons rework, like for every faction. There is really a lot of those. And at the end of this video, I would like to invite all of you to SFO Patreon, because out there we have more, let's say, close communication, because we are posting the stuff there every day with a table with numeric percentage values for every faction, what is done, what will be worked on, what is not done, and also there for your support you can way more directly help with the feedback and also decisions for the SFO Grimhammer team. And yeah, that would be all for this video. Thank you everyone for the watching. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell if you like my content, and yeah, that was Vandris, and thank you everyone for watching. I'm out.